Welcome to JGTCR. I'm Cope and today we are tuning the Mitsubishi Evo 8. Let's get into it. The first thing we notice when compared to other Evos driven is how much more stable the 8 is when driving. The handling is more balanced and level when attacking turns. It's far more refined outright. The steering is considerably pointed, and while it is impacted by throttle, it is quite mild overall. The power available is 276 horsepower, and it runs through the gears comfortably and without any hesitation. The power delivery is quite tidy. It does have some slip if we drive rough, but it is mostly well contained. The brakes do as intended, with only some mild sloppiness to contend with. However, this is very manageable. Let's collect our time. 8 minutes, 0.5 seconds. And now, the race tune. When modified and tuned, this Evo is very stable and mostly reliable on track. The handling can get slippery on the tail end if we overcook entries, but if we enter slow, we are a bullet on the way out. The steering is quite stable and pristine. It's absolutely brilliant if we are smooth and calculated on inputs when going through turns. The power available is 549 horsepower, and it's very attentive. Additionally, the extra gear means we are always in power band, which is a huge advantage. The power delivery is mostly great. The tail can have a slide to it, but if we are good with throttle control, this can actually help us when we need some extra turn in while cornering. The brakes are fairly solid, but being too aggressive on them can cause the tail to step out if we try and turn at the same time. Let's collect our time. 6 minutes, 23.8 seconds. And now, the drift tune. This Evo can be a reasonable drift car as long as we abide by the four-wheel drive drift laws. Don't over-rev, don't get out of power band, and don't counter-steer while shifting gears. The handling is solid, firm, and well-pointed as long as we stick to the aforementioned rules. The steering is considerably impacted by throttle, so we must be mindful of how aggressive we are when it's applied. The power is more than enough to initiate and maintain drift, but how we utilize it is far more important. The power delivery is crisp and responsive enough. We just need to know how to use it without messing ourselves up. Overall, this Evo is a middle-of-the-road four-wheel drive drift car. It does what it needs to, but it still has that front-end bite we get from four-wheel drive drift. And now, it's time for an engine swap. It does seem that anything with this final Evo engine swap gets a rally suspension transplant as well. The handling is sloppy and quite frankly annoying. The steering is heavily impacted by throttle and it's a very spongy affair through and through. The power is just over 520 horsepower and it's all bottom end torque. The power delivery is at least 50% wheel spin and not the fun kind. This Evo can be driven cautiously, but it is prone to erratic behavior at its limits. The brakes are again a sponge fest and can get us into trouble if we are not vigilant on inputs. Let's collect our time. Seven minutes, 27.6 seconds. And now, the race tune. When modified and tuned, this Evo is a bullet with a touch of flair for the dramatic if we overdo it. The handling is great as long as we don't push too hard going into corner entries. The steering is immaculate as long as we drive within this Evo's means. It does zig and zag as we request. The power available is 788 horsepower. And having 6 gears works a treat with our custom ratios. The power delivery runs a razor's edge. Be smooth and calculated, and this Evo is a weapon. Be a brute on inputs, however, and it's a fast and slippery ride. The brakes are completely on point. If we hit our brake markers, everything goes right. However, it will kick the tail if we come in too hot. Let's collect our time. Six minutes, 9.1 seconds. And now, the drift tune. This engine-swapped Evo is actually not quite as good as the factory engines for drift. It seems that it has too much aggression and bite for its own good. The handling is just okay. It works decently as long as we stay in the correct RPM. The steering is reasonably pointed, but it is also impacted by RPM and throttle aggression. The power is considerably aggressive and can easily get away from us if we are not vigilant on inputs. The power delivery is what we must focus on if we want to make this all work. Keeping RPM around 5,000 revs is how we stay on point without becoming overwhelmed. This Evo is not a great drift car. It's finicky, but it does work if we can contain ourselves on inputs. And now, it's time for another engine swap. With just the engine swap in place, this is one of the more erratic chassis we have driven. Everything is working against us, and this Evo will kick and snap its way around the track with no regards for our inputs. The handling is all over the place. Everything is an issue. This is one of the sloppiest, toppiest vehicles we have driven. The steering is absolutely decimated by the throttle at all times. Short shifting is definitely needed to stay on top of it. The power available is over 1,000 horsepower and it's absolutely brutal. The power delivery is hyper aggressive. It's all torque down low and peaky up high. The brakes are a complete joke. They lock up and throw us in random directions for no reason. Let's collect our time. Seven minutes, 25.1 seconds. And now, the race tune. I am going to make this very clear at the beginning of this segment as it's very important. Low RPM for technical sections and rev out hard on straights. The handling is quite impressive, especially when compared to the other engine variables. This engine-swapped Evo is very smooth if driven correctly and does not misbehave in most scenarios. The steering is precise and pointed down low in RPM, but it understeers aggressively at high RPM. The power is over 1200 horsepower, and it certainly is a brute force performer. The power delivery is a touch tail happy, however this does work for us if we drive it well. The brakes do perform well when everything is put into perspective, however they can seem lazy to the untrained eye. We do see some brake fade from higher speeds, and we have to consider the extra weight we carry that stabilizes us. So we have to make sure that we use early brake markers and make sure not to push them even by a hair. Let's collect our time. "6 minutes, 1.6 seconds. And now the drift tune. This engine-swapped Evo performs incredibly well and is considerably stable. The additional weight via the ballast and the torquey bottom end is a great combo for this chassis. The handling does still feel four-wheel drive based, however it is much more forgiving. The steering does still bite if we don't let it breathe, but it is a slower movement and much easier to correct. The power is completely brute force and can get away from us easily. The power delivery must be managed well in low to mid RPM to get this Evo drifting well. This engine-swapped Evo is the best drift performer. If you want to drift an Evo, this one is the highest ranked in my humble opinion. And that's all we have for you today, so until next time, keep racing!